As stated in the last chapter, after suffering different kinds of hellish conditions, a man comes again to the human form of body. The same topic is continued in this chapter. In order to give a particular type of human form to a person who has already suffered hellish life, and the soul is transferred to the semen of a man who is just suitable to become his father. During the sexual intercourse, the soul is transferred through the semen of the father into the mother's womb in order to produce a particular type of body. This process is applicable to all embodied living entities. But it is especially mentioned for man who was transferred to the Andatamishra hell. After suffering there, when he has had many types of hellish bodies, like those of dogs and hogs, is to come again to the human form. He is given the chance to take his birth in the same type of body from which he degraded himself to hell. Everything is done by the supervision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Material nature supplies the body, but it does so under the direction of the Super Soul. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that the living entity is wandering in this material world on a chariot made by the material nature. The Supreme Lord, as the Super Soul, is always present to the individual soul. He directs material nature to supply a particular type of body to the individual soul according to result of his work, and the material nature supplies it. Here one word, retaha kanashrayaha, is very significant because it indicates that it is not the semen of the man that creates the life within the womb of a woman. Rather, the living entity, the soul, takes shelter in a particle of semen and is thus pushed into the womb of a woman. Thus the body develops. There is no possibility of creating a living entity without the presence of the soul, simply by sexual intercourse. The materialistic theory that there is no soul and that a child is born simply by material combination of sperm and ovum is not very feasible. It is unacceptable. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So the journey of the spirit soul in this material world is being discussed by Lord Kapila. The last chapter is about description of adverse fruitive activities, which it basically tells about how those human beings who lead a sinful life, they go to the hell where there are different kinds of sufferings, and also they receive different lower kinds of bodies like dogs, etc. And then they are reborn again as human beings under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and made to enter into the womb of woman through a particle of semen of a particular type of father. So this is the reality, or this is the history of each one of us. The description is so clearly given that all these transformations are happening in the material field. All these transformations are happening with the body, gross body and subtle body. This transformation is not happening to the soul. The soul is changeless. The person in these different bodies is changeless. his nature does not change, but his experience changes. So his experience alone is changing, but he does not change. He change means he has to become something else. The soul doesn't change. It's changeless. Its experience changes. In each body, he thinks he is that personality. I am this body. And then thinking that on the basis of that false ego, that I am this body, he develops several secondary personalities. I am this, I am that, different situational personalities. He takes up a false constitutional personality, I am this body, and then he adopts so many different personalities. I am father, I am mother, I am this, I am that, I am a businessman, I am an Indian, I am so many different secondary personalities are pasted on to the fundamental illusion that I am the body. But I am the body is a basis of false ego. So no doubt, now the living entity who is beyond this material body, beyond this material nature, he exercises his willing when he is in this body. And he exercises his willing to do either sinful activities or whatever willing he exercises, the material energy takes care, it executes. Because if I want to lift my hand, the design is such that I want to lift my hand, I can lift my hand. But I really do not know how, under what mechanism the hand got lifted. I have no idea. How when I wished, how the signal went to my brain and how finally hand got lifted, I do not know. The facility is given. I want to lift my hand, I lift my hand. So we are given opportunity in this material body to use free will to move our body, move our senses, move our everything, jnana indriyas, karma indriyas, and perform activities. And why do we perform activities? Why does the jiva perform activities? For rasa. Jiva performs activity is rasa, for rasa. For fulfilling its spiritual instincts of Satchit Ananda. Therefore, he performs activities. That is the goal of coming into different bodies. So, when he is in a particular type of a human body, there is a greater awakening of disciplining his free will. What I should do, what I should not do. Therefore, it is said that the human form of life is meant for progressive growth. Progressive path of life. How does one remain on the progressive path of life? One remains on the progressive path of life by progressive actions. And progressive actions are actions which are prescribed in the scriptures as to what is the duty of the human being in a particular type of a body. Progressive path of life means executing actions which are prescribed duties, and also, very important, is not to do certain activities which are prohibited. So the idea of do and don't, do's and don'ts, Normally we tend to think that, oh no, do's and don'ts are connected to some authority. Authority saying do, you do. Authority says don't, you don't do. But that is a very preliminary understanding. The right understanding is that if you do what is told, and if you don't, and you don't do what is prohibited, or if you don't do what is prohibited, then the fruit is for you that your consciousness progresses upwards towards liberation, towards higher gunas. So don't do sinful activity is not, I'm afraid of somebody. Somebody told don't do sinful activities. I won't do sinful activities. I can. That is very preliminary understanding. One understands that sinful activity, if he understands the full knowledge of it, he will understand that his consciousness is falling down. He is getting entangled into the lower modes of material nature. Sin means that. Papa karma means that. Adhering to the do's and don'ts of the scriptures means good for me, I am progressing. No one can progress in life without having a disciplined exercise of one's free will, keeping the goal in mind. Let us say if I want to go from here to Rajaji Nagar first block, I have to make sure my free will doesn't stray away right side, left side, into this street, into that street. But potential is there for me. When I get out of the gate, I can go this side, I can go that side, or I can go into Mahalakshmi layout, I can go into crossroads, right? Which means you are decided, I won't go here, I won't go here, I won't go here, I won't go here, I will go there. So generally tendency of people to think that if something is told don't do, you think it is restricting my free will. This is another concept, which is a tamasic concept of don'ts. When the scriptures say don't do something, it simply means that it is helping you to go towards the destination that your soul wants to go. Your soul likes to go. Your natural destination of the soul is to be progressive in life. Progressive in life means progressive in evolving in our consciousness from tamoguna to rajaguna to sattoguna to back to Godhead. So that is the purpose of the instructions of do's and don'ts. Now, each living entity has taken by the divine arrangement, Daiva Netrena, the living entity is placed in the semen of a particular type of a father. And it's all by divine arrangement, not by accident. Not by accident. And this is what the scriptures say. Retaha kanashrayaha. In the semen, a particle of living entity enters. And that is placed within the womb of a woman. We can see the evidence of this simple fact is that there are so many couples who do not have children, they try so many ways. But unless that, how does life come is a mystery even to modern science. Okay, you don't have children, we'll do something, you will have children. So much scientists claim to have advanced, but this they cannot do it. They cannot do it. That proves the statement here that unless the spirit soul, living entity, enters the semen, there cannot be pregnancy. There cannot be. If at all there is, by artificial means, test tube babies, this, that, intro, vitro, some fertility clinic and all these things they have. They take semen from somebody, then they put the egg of somebody else, and then they mix it, and then they put it in the womb. All these kind of things are there in modern. But that doesn't answer this question. Why do you have to do all these things? Why don't you mix more and more? That husband and wife's, semen and womb. Go on mixing. One day it will come. No, they have to go, they have to find another semen and this, that, all kinds of jugglery they have to do. So in the face of even so much of scientific advancement, just see that science is not able to guarantee a couple, a childless couple, that you will get a couple, you will get a child. They cannot guarantee. They take donor sperm and then they put it in the womb or they fertilize it outside. Then they wait whether it's worked or not. They're so sure that the sperm has got the living entity, they should be very sure. No, they wait. The couple waits. Then suddenly yes. Otherwise, they wait, nothing happens. Next attempt, they say. Another sperm sample they take. Or they'll say either ovum is at fault or sperm is at fault, something else they say. And they go to next trial. And each time they make money. If at all they want to, this world is a cheating world. Probably they have classified certain semens don't have. So first trial they'll give that only and then make some money. In many other things in medicine it happens. In the medical field it happens. Purposely, intentionally, the doctors give a particular treatment knowing it will fail. And they make money out of it. Money is honey for the karmis. So, the materialistic theory that there is no soul and that a child is born simply by material combination of sperm and ovum is not very feasible. It is unacceptable. Because there is a higher arrangement for all these things. And these things are carried out under the supervision of the super soul through his agency of Kala. It's an elaborate network. The Lord is unlimited. And the Lord's creation is unlimited. The number of living entities are unlimited. Lord's enjoying capacity is unlimited. Entire existence is unlimited. Nothing is fixed. Even Krishna's enjoyment is unlimited. Krishna enjoys newer and newer and newer things. This is the concept of God. Whether at the material plane or in the spiritual plane at Goloka Vrindavana. His Leelas is the very purpose of existence. Sarva Karana Karanam. He is a cause of all causes. He is a cause of all causes means his enjoyment is a cause of all causes. He is a cause of all causes. In an impersonal way, we say there is a cause behind it, there is a cause behind it, there is a cause behind it, there is a cause behind this effect, and there is a cause behind this effect. Finally, there is a cause which does not have an effect. A cause which does not have a cause. That is Sarva Karana Karanam. But actually the impersonal causes, chain of cause effect does not end there. You can simply say, okay, God is cause of all causes. Means there is no personal God. Cause of all causes is God. No personal God. But the personal God, so therefore the cause of all causes, impersonally we understand this way. But when the Vaishnava says Ishvaraha Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam, that means he is the cause. That means his enjoyment is the cause of everything. Everything exists because he wishes that it should exist for his scheme of things. That is Krishna. So that can be seen, the Lord's unlimited nature can be seen even in this material world. Don't have to go to spiritual world. We're all controlled, either by the material energy or by the spiritual energy. Influenced, not controlled, influenced. Control means 100%. It's like a control means like stone falls, it is controlled, 100% controlled. But living entities are not, they are influenced either by the internal energy or by the external energy. So the living entity moves from one species to another species according to the laws of karma, as they desire and deserve. Basically, as spiritualists, what we need to understand is my free will is so critical for where I want to go. Even simple understanding, you want to go towards first block, you decide, then you have to use your, first you use your primary free will, I want to go to first block. Then you have to ensure your secondary free will acts to move your leg, your entire system. Secondary free will, you take all secondary decisions in order to reach first block. So secondary free will automatically means not only do certain things, it also means don't do certain things. Very often we don't have this power of not doing things. Not doing is also powerful like doing. For instance, we say we have to perform devotional service, right? If there is an opportunity for breaking one of the principles, and if you decide not to break, normally in our radar we don't see it as devotional service. Only if I am chanting, if I am doing some service, that is considered as devotional service. But that is not true. Every instruction you follow about not doing certain things, when you follow that, you are equally pleasing the Lord. You're equally pleasing the Lord. Suppose there is an opportunity for sense gratification, and you sacrifice that sense gratification for a higher cause. Instruction, let's say, in following the instructions of Prabhupada. You're not doing anything. Doing something positively with the senses is one activity. Not doing something with the senses, we tend to think it is no action. Is it not? But in devotional service, no action is also action. By not acting, you get credit of acting. So whenever we say doing devotional service, we need to understand that it means pleasing the Lord by doing and not doing. By doing and not doing. The Lord is in our heart as a super soul. Moment you decide not to do something which is not pleasing to Him, it immediately pleases Him. We have to train our mind to be motivated by the pleasure of the Lord. Yes, this pleases the Lord in my heart. Then it motivates you. Otherwise, you think, okay, I am told not to do this. And your mind will say, do it. Mind will say, do, engage it, sense gratification. And then you try to resist it. But if you have the particular paradigm that right now not doing it is going to please Krishna as much as I go out and engage in preaching somebody, it is same. The Lord looks at it as same, because you have taken your decision to please Him. So immediately the Lord is pleased. To resist temptations and to control our senses, to satisfy Guru and Krishna is also devotional service. That paradigm we should have. Then you feel inspired. Oh, by controlling my senses, I am pleasing Krishna. It's not that if I control my senses, I will please Krishna. That is also true. But the devotee thinks differently. By controlling the senses, I please Krishna. It's a positive opportunity to render devotional service. Every impulse of my senses which force me to act, which pushes me to act against Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, is a great opportunity for pleasing the Lord. It is an opportunity for pleasing the Lord. You should not think it as a problem. Oh, my mind is disturbing me, this problem in devotion. No. Very, very good, disturb more. You disturb more. Why? More opportunity to say no. That means more number of times you please the Lord in the heart. You are increasing your devotional service. We have got so many anarthas in our heart. If we are ready to engage everything in Krishna's service, then very fast, the super soul will kick up all the dust underneath. And so many forces will come into your mind for sense gratification. So much disturbance will come. But it will not be a disturbance, because you have learned the art of pleasing the Lord with each disturbance. So don't look at disturbance of mind as a problem. In management they say, that don't see problems, see only opportunities. It's very much applicable to us also. In devotion service, mind is disturbed means don't see it as a problem. See it as an opportunity to please the Lord in my heart. The Lord is just waiting here. He is at all time, at all space, He is waiting for any offering of devotion service. Any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sometimes it happens like we say that my mind is giving me some thoughts. I don't want to get haunted by those thoughts. And at the same time, we say that the mind is a material energy, made of material energy, which is dead. So how can mind, which is made of material energy, can have the qualities like of the soul, which is thinking, feeling, and willing? The mind is willing something. How can it do that? Because it is dead, it is material.
Because the power of illusion. I'll give you one example. Let's say you record your voice in a player, a recorder, and you play it back. Because it is your voice, you immediately identify with it. Isn't it? Because it's just a duplication. Identify it. In the same way, everything that the mind comes up and haunts us is everything that we have recorded. And we have recorded with our own voice. So when it comes to us, we think it is me. We think it is me. But in reality, it cannot have, what you say is correct. If you come out of the illusion, it has no power over you. Because you will just see it as recording. Suppose a desire comes up. You will first say it is not a desire at all. It is just recording of a desire. It's a dead desire. Now online I can desire. I can say no to that desire. That is a recording of the old desire. Finish. Then you don't give life to it. But if you think that that is also your desire, this is also your desire, then you are in conflict. Isn't it? This is also my desire. Desire to say something, the mind says, do this. Then you think that it is my desire. And then your online desire now is there, which is saying, according to what Prabhupada and devotional standards, I shouldn't do it, right? Now both you are adopted on equal platform, both are me. But actually one of that is you. The other one is your mind, recorded desire. So you have to learn how to see these things and then live with spiritual intelligence and differentiate between these old desires, or they're all conditioned desire, conditioned willing, conditioned force to act. They are not me. So moment you give the right status to your present desire, that is spiritual, and you downgrade the force of your mind, that it is a illusory recording. See, recording will look exactly like, recording means, faithful recording means what? Exactly like yours, right? So in the same way, when I desired that, all my soul faculties was involved in it. So with that it is recorded. That means every past desire is an experiential memory. It's not a one-piece memory. Not that only desire is a memory. Your whole total personality is a memory there. It's an experiential memory. And that experiential memory rises up as if it's a you. Because when you did it, when you put it inside, your whole personality only put it inside. So recording will be as it is. The whole personality will come up. It's me. And then that means you are fighting an equal force. So to neutralize that, we have to differentiate between what you said is halfway you are, this realization, halfway you are successful already. By knowing that, how can mind influence the soul? Mind is material. It cannot. Unless I am in illusion, I myself am online believing that that is also my desire, this is also my desire. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, as you told, for a childless couple, is it because soul is not present, or like modern science say, it is because of lack of proper structure of semen, like that? Is it because of absence of soul? Means soul is not there?
It is absence of soul. See, our understanding is everything is laws of the Lord. Sperm count, this, that, so many factors are there. Those are material reasons. Those material reasons are also possible. And there is also spiritual reason. But material reason, we don't have full knowledge of material. Just like if you say, okay, if the soul is there, if you don't mix if the sperm and the ovum don't mix, still life will come out, because life is not sperm or ovum. No, you still have to follow the rules. Sperm and this has to mix. And in addition, the soul has to be there. Then there will be pregnancy. So the material laws also have to be satisfied. And spiritual, the higher laws also have to be, higher laws of karma, not spiritual, higher, subtler laws of karma, Daiva Netrena. The Lord should place the living entity in that. Then it will happen. So both factors. We know there are so many cases where a couple, I know particularly one case, where a couple, they had to, after a long time, they were childless, and they used that vitro something. Vitro fertility hospital, they went, and somehow she got pregnant and she gave birth to a child. For 4 years, they didn't have a child. Then they got a child. And then, if that was the case, then suddenly, without their knowledge, again, naturally she became pregnant, a second child. If the same person had no capacity to produce a child, how did it happen again? Then they thought it was a freak case, chhod diya. Then second child is born. Then again after that, suddenly she's again pregnant. No intro, vitro, nothing. So how did it happen first time? How did it happen second time? How did it happen third time? Nobody can. Their science cannot explain. It was time, it happened.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam that different organs of the body are controlled by the demigods. Mm-hmm. So how this can be understood from?
There are intermediate controllers. They are not whimsical controllers. Those controllers have to follow certain laws. So it simply means that there are not only impersonal laws, there are personal laws also, which, just like impersonal law will, if I don't eat, I'll get hungry. It's an impersonal law. I'll get acidity. It's an impersonal law. The law will operate on me, right? Similarly, the different sense organs are under the control of different demigods, which means that there are other personal laws also over and above the impersonal laws, which you cannot, it is a facility given to them as Ishwaras. Everybody has material world, everybody get Ishwara Rasa, no? So similar different demigods are given Ishwara Rasa, but they also have to follow the laws of karma. Everybody is working under the jurisdiction of laws of karma enforced by Kala. Yesterday's verse we saw how Kala, even up to Yamaraj, he is under the power of Kala.
Hare Krishna, bro. Prabhu, you told that we should not see as a problem but as an opportunity. But if you see, if we don't see as a problem, like where is impetus for me to go out of this material world? We think it's a problem. I don't see as a problem, then I don't see this material world as a problem. Whatever the thoughts are, then how can I think that this material world is dukkhalayama shashvatam? How can I see that?
No, in order to come out of this dukkhalayama shashvatam, you take it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to come out of this dukkhalayama shashvatam. I don't see these, all my anarthas if it is coming up. It is not that you embrace it, let it come, let it come, let it come. You are saying, let it come, I will kill it. You are not saying, let it come, I will embrace it. That is not welcoming, right? Suppose you want to kill somebody, welcome, pack, kill. That is a different kind of a welcome, no? So we welcome the anarthas. Let it come. I got holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Daily I will kill. Let the process happen very fast. Let me get purified. Every day 16 rounds I am chanting, Anedo, Anedo, Janedo. That is not me. As I gave this example, this mind, the old mind, old recording. Why should I think, oh, I am having a bad desire? Hey, no, you don't have any bad desire now. You are disciple of Prabhupada. Those are all your old bad desire. And not me. There's some ghost. False ego, not real ego. They're false ego desires. Real ego, ego means real. Real ego means real desire. False ego's desires are false because ego itself is false. So they are all, earlier I acted for sense gratification under false ego. They are all recorded now and they are all rising up in my mind. So by refusing to satisfy those things, I become, those becomes cleansed. Just like if in your house, your room full of ghosts, various rooms, and you are sitting in the veranda, and you are chanting Hare Krishna. Why? You want to evict all the ghosts. And when you are chanting Hare Krishna in the veranda, and you are seeing one by one ghosts are going, why should you be disturbed? You should be happy. You are becoming conscious of it, that is all. But suppose you think, oh, that is me, come, go inside back. Don't go inside back. So one side you chant Hare Krishna, other side you push all the desires back. Stay there, stay there, stay there. It will stay there. Grandharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.